Welcome to Courage Class. I'm Dr. Lindsay Kwok-Hugh, and each week I'm in conversation with our community's changemakers and trailblazers. Together, we explore the unspoken parts of our Asian and Western experiences, finding strength, growth, and healing that reflect who we truly are, not who we've been told to be. I'm so glad you're here. Class is now in session. Hey, John, I wanted to start off with just a general question around success. For our listeners right now, what do you wish you knew about success early on in your career that no one said to you?
That's a great question. And when I was thinking about it, I had many different answers. And I would say, looking at it now, today, in the context of AI and how everything has changed in a way that is profound, we all feel it. We don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
We all feel there's a seismic change. And I think taking it maybe one step at a time, grew up valuing education. It was what my parents taught me. It was not only just what was in our family, it was what in our collective culture, right? And so knowledge was always such a sacred thing. I was taught, to really build a deep expertise, to be very good at what I do. And that was in part something that stayed with me my whole life.
Yeah.
And something now with the advent of AI, I would highlight to myself in my younger form would be, do learn, stay curious, be good at what you do, but don't let it be a box, right? The world is going to change. You can't be defined by just this dimension and passion of learning and being good at something and helping others. You really need to figure out how the world is moving, how it's evolving, how you stay connected with it, stay grounded with yourself, but connected to your communities as they all evolve. And to try to always understand that the biggest point is not what you've learned and how well you are doing with the knowledge you have, but are you solving people's problems? Are you adding value? I think that is what I would say, it used to be, lifelong learning, curiosity, lifelong learning, right?
I appreciate you sharing that and really contextualizing what we should be thinking about in this moment of uncertainty and AI. I'm curious to know, because you said education several times and developing knowledge, and certainly I heard a theme of working hard. Could you give us some insight? What were you like as a child growing up?
Oh my goodness. I saw, if I had to go back and look at my younger pictures and look at my yearbook, I think I'd have that universal cringy moment. But in all honesty, I'm a native San Franciscan, born and raised in Chinatown, to first generation Chinese who came here to start a new life, to try to grab a slice of the American dream. So when I was a child, I was really focused on helping the family establish ourselves in the United States. So a lot of I would say I was, what the Chinese would say, guai, right? My parents were like, I need you to do this. I would go do it. I need you to help at the restaurant again. I need you to go get to school and start studying hard. We're here to help. We're here to raise you so that we will be successful through you, right? That was the kind of community that I grew up in. That was the family messaging I received, and not just me, but all my friends at the time, right? So we were those children that really felt the role in the family to be that transition generation, to go to help bridge the hard work and the manual work to something that would beyond that, something that a bridge to something more, whatever that was. For us, it was doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? It was something professional.
Yep.
And so a lot of my life growing up was spent toward trying to honor that request.
Yes.
And to make my parents feel proud that the investment they put into my brother and I were going to pay off.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that folks can really understand, were you going to school by day and then you'd come home and go straight to the restaurant, do your
Yeah, pretty
homework?
much.
Pretty much.
It's
Wow.
pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. We were joking about this, but I'm also not joking when I say you really have the background, the resume that would just make any immigrant parent, any parent, what am I talking about? Not even immigrant parent, any parent, regardless of their race, class, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, so proud, John. I mean, it really is incredible what you
Thank you.
did. Per these incredible credentials, and when you look back at, and I'm just going to name drop some of your institutions: Lowell, Stanford, UCD Law School. Could you help us understand, what did this specific chapter of education, what did it really build up in you? I mean, you're starting to allude to it, certainly per your childhood, but I would love to give that its own airtime.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So obviously there was a lot of I would say there was a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
which meant there was a lot of hand wringing and anxiety and lots of long hours. I remember when I was a kid, I
Yeah.
was like, "Who needs sleep?" You know, I can sleep when I'm done, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You
Yes.
just keep going,
Yes.
and you just keep trying. And I was always propelled by the fact that my parents also worked hard. I wasn't working in isolation, right? I was working as part of a communal family sort
Mm.
of rhythm of we all worked hard. My mom had a day job and she worked at the restaurant,
Yeah.
right? So I just adopted
Yes.
um, that same rhythm,
Yes. Yes.
and it taught me um, grit, certainly, right? It
Mhm.
taught me patience. It taught me to just really, really practice and work hard and make sure I hit my marks when I
Yeah.
need to hit my marks.
Yeah.
And but it also um, allowed me to contribute back to a family that was working so hard. And so
Mm.
I felt like there was a kind of virtuous cycle going on in some way because
Oh,
everybody was working hard.
yeah. Yeah. So much of your story, I think, is going to really resonate specifically with the Asian American community, because many of us can attach to this idea of really honoring and supporting our family, doing right by our parents who made these incredible sacrifices, and the commitment and level of responsibility that comes with that. One of the most compelling parts of your story, at least to me selfishly, John, is not only are you incredibly successful per your resume, but you also are an incredibly, I think, emotionally attuned person.
Mm.
And I'm curious to know from you, the story sometimes that we are told as Asian Americans or children or grandchildren of even immigrant parents is that financial stability and success over everything else. And rightly so, right? I'm curious to know, where in your life did you realize that success might be more than just something that, appeared on a resume?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this is such a universal question, and
Mm.
I remember asking this question in my 20s, then my 30s, and then
Mm.
onwards, right? When I was in my 20s, in some ways, my relationship with myself and sort of the conversations I would have with myself
Yeah.
were tied along the lines of performance, right? Got to be prepared. You got to be able to make sure you're pulling your weight, you're adding the kind of value, you're putting in your hours, you're putting up the kind of work product that people want to see, and it's very much part of my identity.
Mm.
Um, as I grew um, into my career and things were less sort of work product driven and more, I would say, more business driven, right?
Mm.
Or more, I don't want to say managerial because this happens to individual contributors as well, right? But the the pressure doesn't go away; it just increases, and the
Mm.
dimensions of what is being asked of you changes, right? I mean, the work product of a person who's been in their job for 1 to 2 years is different than what they're asking for someone who's been in their position for 10 years or 15 years. There's the wisdom of trying to understand what the purpose is in the context of the role and the business itself. As I started to understand being responsible for more and more um, of a business, I had to become more emotionally aware of what that required of me in order to supply that kind of change in myself.
Mm.
And then if that often meant, you know, when you're younger, you're working on, things that have easy workflow. It's very easy to understand when
Yeah.
hand off, what to hand off, when to hand off, who to hand off to. But as things progress, the workflow is more dynamic. The edges and the handoffs are softer. They're less defined. There's a lot more interpretation. There's also a lot of ability to fashion it yourself, right?
Mm.
So I think my conversations changed from, you've got to be ready to perform. You've got to be prepared to, we've got to understand myself a little bit better here. What's going on? I need to understand my ground truth so I can understand what the other parties want and how to deliver a solution that everybody can live with, right? It changed for me over time, right?
I
So I
see.
tried to move away from kind of in some ways a proving myself kind of mentality
Mm.
to sort of grounding myself to the situations as they come and to become open and fluid and adjust and adapt to the parties around me.
Yes.
It's a more nuanced life.
I see. And I appreciate you sharing that. I'm curious to know what skills you began to really build up, not just in yourself, but also in your maybe your day to day. And if it's okay, John, you're a C-level person at a company up in Silicon Valley that you founded, just so folks understand where you're coming from.
Let me think. I'll start with maybe the inner conversations with myself, right?
Yeah.
When I became a father, right? I've always been very family oriented, and
Yes.
as a child, I contributed to my family in a certain way. But for those who have become parents, the moment you have your child, the world changes in such a fundamental way that awakened a huge emotional awareness in me that I think that only comes when you are holding your child in your arms.
Yeah.
And the conversations that I started to have was conversations not about what I thought the world would be like, but what would the world be like from my child's perspective?
Mm.
And
Wow.
changing, right? Taking yourself out of your shoes in some, it's sort of a trite metaphor, but trying to walk in somebody else's shoes, but really doing it. I used to do it like intellectually, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I
Mm.
thought about it at a far deeper level. It's emotional, but I think it's a little bit more than emotion. I think it's emotion plus the intellect plus wisdom that comes from the two grinding together. And that process is what I am doing not only as a lawyer and entrepreneur executive. I do that now as a husband. I do that now as a father. I do that as a community member.
You know, you spoke to me in a different conversation about the power behind the extra conversation. And I wonder if you might be willing to share one, why might we want to have that extra conversation? And particularly, of course, in this current moment. And I'm curious to know, how do you do that with your children?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, we only experience being a child.
Mm.
We don't have the experience of being a parent.
Yeah.
And the experience that I have as a child of my parents was that they knew everything and they told you what to do and you just did it, right? And the power of having that extra conversation, what it for me with my children was growth in me in understanding that I don't know them the way they know them,
Mm.
and that my role as the parent based on the experience of my childhood with my parents is not going to serve them today. Different
Mm.
time, different parents, just different situations, right? And so I try to always take a pause to make sure that um, I understand where they are at. And I also ask them to try to understand the power and use the power of having that extra side conversation. I remember one of my children had a question about a particular opportunity they were looking to explore, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they took the time to have this extra conversation with me. Dad, what do you think? I don't know. This is not something I really would normally do. But I don't think I'm going to do it, right? And my comment was, why? Why not? This is your time to explore.
Yeah.
Why don't you just go ask them and see if you can participate and see what you can learn? And I try to explain to my kids, because I think it's really important that this is a time for them to learn and to fail. It's really important.
Mm.
In the area of social media, I feel like kids generally are being inundated with these messages of perfection. And I think it may affect the way they themselves will engage in life. Meaning, I see a lot of kids looking to be perfect in that Instagram perfect moment
Yes.
and not understanding that all that stuff's staged. That's not real life, right? And you shouldn't guide your curiosity or deny your curiosity because of a possible sense of not being perfect. I think that, and I try to tell my kids, it's really important for you to try different things. And if you hate it and you fail, I'm applauding, right?
Wow.
Because it's easy to like something and it's easy to change what you like. But my experience has been if you really hate something, that's something you're never really going to like. And that is a great knowledge for you because you can close that door and you can expend your extra time looking at you go, okay, I really hated that for these reasons. I'm done with it. Okay, you're done with it. You don't have to look back on that anymore. It frees you up to search for the other things that you really want to do. So just the search and the failure itself is necessary. And even if you figure out that you did something that you hated, there's a huge reward in it.
That's really incredible. I feel like that's really challenging the way in which, I think some of us in the Asian American community were raised because failure was not an option,
It's so
you
true.
know,
Exactly.
a- and the strategy was perfectionism. And we just mentioned earlier on in this conversation, doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, are you not telling your children that it's doctor, lawyer, engineer? Is that not the strategy, John?
So, it's really interesting. I think it's a great strategy if you have, as a default, if you've got no other strategy, there's nothing
Okay,
wrong with that strategy,
sure.
right? Right. But I really, really, we've had this conversation in the past, right? With the advent of AI
Hmm.
and, for $20 a month, you can get, what people have said is a pocket full of PhDs.
Yes. Yes.
And I cringe at this possibility because and I suspect you as well,
Hmm.
feel a lot of pride in the effort that we put into learning and
I do.
becoming who we were and
Yeah.
developing our skill. And the fact that it can be produced to everyone for $20 a month on many different dimensions. It's a difficult pill to swallow in many
Hmm.
ways. And but so with this in mind, Dr. Lori Angier, while has been a tried and true and is a classic for a reason, may not be the right thing going forward. Maybe it's nurse, carpenter, and musician. I don't know, right? I think if we're focused only on knowledge for the sake of knowledge and you're interfacing with textbooks and computers, I think there's always going to be room for that. And I personally love it. But I also wonder if the supply of those kinds of jobs will be harder and harder to be created when you have AI generating swaths and swaths of work based on untold amounts of textbooks, right?
Yeah.
There are these medical systems now where you've got, well, this particular medical system has got the knowledge of 1,000 doctors over decades, right?
Yeah.
That's a great expert system. It's not going to replace the doctor. I still want to go see my doctor. I don't want to see a
Same.
doctor on a,
From a
but
computer. Yes.
exactly.
Yes. Yes.
So the instinct is I want to see a human being, right? The,
Hmm.
the, the professions, if we're looking at doctor, lawyer, engineer as the recipe was I needed a bridging point for my children to get to a place of stability and of expertise that would give them a great foundation for the next generation, right? I mean, if, with that in mind, I don't know if doctor, lawyer, engineer is as tried and true as as it once was, especially if those particular jobs are not facing human beings.
Mm. I mean, I've heard you say that a couple times actually. You just mentioned relationship, client facing, people facing. We have an instinct to want to deal with a human in certain capacities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know, for the younger generation of parents, what would you advise them? What types of skills, what types of capacities or experiences should we, if it may not be doctor, lawyer, engineer?
Gosh, that's a great question. There's so many different things, Lindsay, to think about. Like one, um, so I'm kind of like a bottoms up kind of person, and I
Mm.
like to think of things in layers. Like the first layer I think about is emotional resilience and emotional processing.
Oh.
I think that the world is changing as faster than what we can perceive. And I think that there's going to be, I don't think jobs are going to be gone forever. I think they're going to be transmuted into different things, right? And
Okay.
I think there will be a set of people that will be able to pivot and change, and there'll be those who will quickly, and so there'll be less of an issue. And they think there'll be those who will change at their own pace, and that may or may not be quickly because quickly is defined by the market, right?
Mm.
And so we could see a large period of structural frustration in society, right? I have friends with children. They graduated from, very, very good colleges in computer science, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
spent a sizable portion of their family's efforts and resources to get them through these. And I'm going to say these aren't just like any universities. This includes Stanford universities, the Harvards, right? If we overproduce too many software engineers into a market that's now getting cannibalized by AI
Yeah.
for software engineers, right?
Yeah.
They're having a hard time. And there's a lot of frustration for those kids just because 5 years ago, that was the perfect path to go,
Yeah.
right? That's your classic path.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, you introduce AI within 2 years, an entire segment that was thought to be safe is now somewhat of a ghost town when
Yeah.
it comes to jobs, right? And
Yeah.
so there's going to be frustration, and there's going to be this need for our children to be aware that the world is going to be volatile and change, and that maybe we need to think about how to help them emotionally feel good about themselves, and how to help each other, and by first of all understanding themselves, right? Um, so I think that's a very important aspect to think about what we can do for our kids. I always tell my kids, there are two types of people in the world, right? Those people that feel good by pushing people down,
Mm.
and those people who feel good by pulling people up.
Mm.
Pick one, pick one, but I hope you pick the one I want you to pick.
Yeah.
And then, and stay with those people who feel good by pulling people up,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Find that right kind of energy in your
Yeah.
tribe. I think that's really important. So I think there's a whole emotional aspect, and preparing our kids for the fact that your self-esteem should not be tied to your identity,
Mm.
of your
Or your work.
professional identity,
Yes.
your work identity, right? Like
Yes.
I'm a
Yes.
lawyer. It's hard for me to not be a lawyer. I know what it would be like if I was stripped of my professional identity.
Mm.
I'd have my cultural identity, but a lot of my cultural identity when I was growing up was to become a doctor, lawyer, engineer,
Yeah.
right? So
Absolutely.
I've got a highly narrow sense of what my self-esteem is built upon, which is not very healthy. But what I would want my kids to understand is that, your self-esteem is not going to be tied to what your occupation is going to be entirely, right? Or whether you're employed, because there are going to be periods, I think, where everything is going to change.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be periods of gone are the days that you work for a corporation for your whole life, right? It
Mm.
was true for my parents' generation. It's not true for me. I
Yeah.
certainly don't think it's going to be true for our kids. So they need to understand that there's a different level of self-esteem, and that means interacting with their community, building up friendships, um, and understanding that they need to have patience in what they need to do. I think also what I would be doing at the next level above is, of course, learn to be good at something. Be good at something, add value,
Mm.
but also be an entrepreneur, right? Because
Okay.
you're going to have to figure out a way to navigate a rapidly shifting job market.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
during those times where you're waiting, you may need to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I heard you say it's going to be really important that we prepare our children, be more flexible, to be entrepreneurial. How do we take care of ourselves in this moment as we care for our children going through this? I
I
imagine
would
that.
say
Yeah.
take the extra conversation with yourself.
Oh. Oh,
That's what I
yes.
try to do, right? Because I'm kind of a perfectionist, right? Sort of just got beaten into me kind of thing as growing up, right?
Yeah.
And so
Same,
I
John.
so I'm was like, how do I do this, or how can we do this better? And then I
Yeah.
start to get, caught up in um, these little thought experiments that are endless, right? You just get into this endless rabbit hole. And then I have to pull myself aside and say, hey, let's get grounded here.
Yeah.
I always feel like I want to manage the outcome when I know I can only manage the process. I think that's part of being a parent, right? I want my
Totally.
child to be here.
Yes.
Well, that's my want, but that may not be their want.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can do is guide them, give them a good education, give them love, make sure they're fed, make sure they've got a good head on their shoulder, give them the opportunity to explore. And even though I want them to go there, I have to understand that my kids might be happy right over here. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
And letting them know that's okay. And letting them know it's okay.
Yes. Would you say also letting yourself know when you're having that extra conversation with yourself, letting yourself be okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate this, John. As we are beginning to wrap up this conversation, you're humbly explicit about saying, and you said this so many times in our initial conversation, I'm just someone trying to figure it out, but really, I look to you as this example of someone who is, again, not only incredible on paper in your career, but also you have this unique balance of someone who lives this emotional resilience, who doesn't just talk about it, but who actually lives this and practices this in both his professional and personal life. What are you still learning about ambition and parenting and career right now?
Oh, it's so interesting. So I have like different types of personas in my head, right? I still have that ambitious child that was like, I'm really going to work hard. I want to be something. I want to make something of the world. Part of me also says, ambition aside, ambition is driven by me. It's a fundamentally self-gratifying kind of thing. I want this, right? And now I'm trying to grow the side of me that is not just me, but the we side, right? I am a husband. I am a father. I am a lawyer with lawyers that I mentor. And we are part of a profession that holds the law and believes in the gentilism of the profession, that we should work together and try to make things civilized and lawful, right? That kind of approach, which is more outwards facing, more relationship driven, more investing in relationships and into the social fabrics with which we need to lean on to help ourselves build the kind of community we want, so that our children have those community and those institutions that they can rely on for our grandchildren, that kind of thing.
Sure. Absolutely. That was beautifully said. My last question is, what does courage mean to you?
Oh my gosh. I always wish I had more of it. But I think of courage when I'm really uncertain about things in life and I have a lot of fear and doubt. And then I have to go back and say, what is right? What do I think is the right thing to do? And I go ahead and do it anyway, regardless of the uncertainty, of the doubt, regardless of the uncertain, whether or not it's going to pay off. You just go ahead and do it because it's the right thing.
That's great. That's incredible. Thank you. Thank you, John, so much for your time. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Courage Class. I hope today's conversation gave you a little encouragement and inspiration. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And for extra motivation, tools, and behind-the-scenes content, sign up for my newsletter. I'd love to share with you more there. See you next time. All right, and now for the legal language. Courage Class with Dr. Lindsay Kwok Hugh and content posted by Dr. Lindsay Kwok Hugh is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional diagnosis or treatment. Users should not regard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professional for any such conditions.